Hey everyone, I'm Sydney Wright, and today I'm here with Keenan, who is a longtime friend and the founder of the Missouri GSA Network, which is a youth empowerment and leadership organization. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show, and I'm really excited to see you and talk about this.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see you too. It's like 3 or 4 years since I've seen you, and it's really great to talk to you again.
Yeah. So, if you just want to tell us a little bit about what the Missouri GSA Network is and what you're all about and what you've been up to lately.
So, currently I'm in the middle of moving our offices, so that's what I'm going on with me lately. But the Missouri GSA Network is a network of gay-straight alliances or gender spectrum alliances. We don't like to decide what the students call them, but basically they're student-led clubs in high schools that try to change the school environment and the community environment. So they do that in a whole bunch of different ways. Our focus is on their leadership, so like trying to train them on how to run their school clubs well, how to maybe facilitate meetings or pick elected officials for their club. What's going to help them get structure and capacity to like be a better club, right? So right now we have something like 77 schools in the state of Missouri that have GSAs. When we first started our network about 4 years ago, we had about 30 to 40 GSAs. And they were all kind of doing their own thing, trying to make it work, but they didn't really know or have any models for like what other people were doing. So that's kind of where we came in.
Yeah.
So it's 2016 now, and we started in 2013. So we're just over 3.5 years old, and we started. I was volunteering with the organization that you used to go to, Growing American Youth, right? And we started doing these GSA summits. And what I noticed was that the people who were showing up to the support groups and the people who were showing up to the GSA summits were totally two different populations. The students were not the same young people, and I noticed that there was a difference. And I noticed that the students that were coming to the summits ran their GSAs in schools, so had some leadership skills, and some. They had a base of people that were following them, but that started to really change my perspective on like how I'm doing work with young people, and started to see a need for a different organization, right? So not necessarily sort of. Born out of like my own understanding of, because at the time I didn't understand what youth organizing was, and now I'm just like, oh, it's like organizing adults but with young people. So I have to be in relationships with these young people, and I have to like get to know them as people and leaders. And so my background in organizing, but then also seeing this need, sort of was the birthing place of like, okay, well, I'm going to start to form a council, a board, an advisory, something, right, of people who want to do something, right? And so it's been always sort of like being accountable to others that I think is a big part about building community. So I don't think I did any of this stuff by myself. I just kind of have some background in organizing and some connection to young people and my own story that I wanted to do something, that hopefully changes Missouri. I mean, I'm hoping that eventually we see some change happen in Missouri, I think we are seeing some change happen now, but I hope it really, I hope to see 500 GSAs in the state of Missouri. And we have 500 school districts, so every school district could have a GSA.
Definitely.
It's just my thought.
Yeah, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
So what are the big things that you feel like the Missouri GSA Network has brought to these schools?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the students, like I said, in GSAs felt like they were the only ones doing it. Like, for instance, right now, I'm working with a school up in Troy, Missouri, which is a very rural community in Missouri. and they might well be the only resource for LGBT resources in the whole Troy area, right? So 45 minutes, outside of the St. Louis City area and outside of the MSA, there's not very many resources. And so just connecting them to other GSAs is something that we bring to the table, and I think that that's a good snapshot of like what we've done with the other GSAs, right? So we're not really reinventing the wheel, and we're actually not like trying to make stuff up ourselves. We're just trying to connect them to each other because they make up so much of our program, right? So they do their own things, and we just kind of like lift them up, tell their stories, talk about them, keep them in the forefront of people's ideas of how change happens, right? So, and then I think the ways that we've been doing that is by holding gatherings strategically around the state in 5 different regions. We've been holding regional summits for the last 3 years, and then this past summer we had our most successful LGBT camp, which was really great. Over like 80 students from around the state came. Wow. And in Missouri, to have a queer and trans camp where students can connect with each other who again might feel isolated because they're in rural parts of the state, really just showed so much fruit when it came to like, oh, now you know somebody who's going through similar things or maybe running their GSA in their school and it's also in a rural environment. So they stick around a lot longer and they're more productive because they know other people that are doing it too. Yeah, it's so last year was about 70 to 80 students, and we had adults there, and we basically structure the camp to get them to understand why they do the work that they do, and then what are the steps on how they can do the work better, and then what does it look like if the work's done really well. So it's a 5-day camp, and sandwiched on the sides of those are community building and introduction days, kind of like how do we build community and games and things like that, and then sort of like saying goodbye, which usually takes, a good chunk of time as well when you've met people and you've built community and you feel like so close to these people. So we're looking forward to doing it again this year. Applications are already out, people are already starting to like buzz about it. The camp director is 17 and she's Parkway Central student, and she's like excited to like put together a staff of students that are like working with her to like do the curriculum and do all the logistics, everything from like cooking to cleaning up the kitchen to like what are they going to do with their time while they're out there is all like decided by the students.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's really an youth empowerment model.
Yeah, I mean, we believe that young people have the ability to hold all the power that they need to change the schools that they're in, right? So like adults are great sometimes, but in this case, adults are the allies. And when it comes to making change, people who are most impacted are going to be the ones who make that change.
Definitely.
So the students are going to be the ones who change the schools.
Yeah. So I've also seen, in addition to the camp and the things going on in the schools, I've also seen some of the other kind of like activism and advocacy work that the youth are doing, if you want to touch on that.
I mean, some of the students are making national headlines. I mean, this past fall, we had a student in Hillsborough who came to our camp and learned about the network and then got really involved in their GSA and then caused a bit of a national media stir. Lila Perry was going to the bathroom and using the restroom for years, but it wasn't until she sort of got empowered by the network to really like make that splash. And so a lot of the activism is like training these students on how to deal with media. Like we had to do like a quick and dirty, like let's do some media training with you, because like we need to know, we need to know some skills in order to talk to the media, right? Mm-hmm. And that's I'm really glad that I have some of that in my background. I wouldn't say that I'm like an expert at media training, right? But enough to like feel like I can give you a couple of the quick and dirty tips and tricks of like how to deal with a media outlet, right? And so, and then advocacy around now, like bathroom issues, right? So the state of Missouri, we just had a bill that was pre-filed saying that students have to go to the sex bathroom of their sex at birth, and specifically would speak to Lila Perry. I mean,
yes.
they're talking about Lila right there. And so some of our work actually bleeds into public policy, and the students that are going to be advocating are going to go to the Capitol in the spring and talk about these things. They not only talk about bathrooms, but they talk about school push out, the things that are pushing them out of schools. And so, yeah, I mean, we kind of organically let the students drive the issues in which we work on. Some of them run campaigns in their schools, and then some of them run campaigns within our network. But yeah, whatever they want to do, that's our job, to sort of like hold the bowl for them to advocate in, right?
Yeah.
And we just hold it so that they can like do the work.
Okay. So basically, so far we've been talking about the journey to grow into the organization that it is today. Did you have any like difficulties or bumps in the road? And
yeah, a lot of difficulty. I mean, starting a nonprofit is not easy. It's like starting a business. We're not there yet. I'd still say we're like a teenager in the growth, right, of a nonprofit. We started off with $0, which is definitely like a hard thing to do, right? Because you want to like do stuff, but how do you do stuff before you have money, and how do you get money before you do stuff? So the definite like chicken before the egg piece, and finding creative ways to make things work and sort of piecemeal something together before I could get a salary even was like sometimes very like wearing, and it's almost like, well, why don't I just give up? Like I thought about it several times. I've had lots of different times thinking about it, where I'm just like, in the first 6 months, in the first year specifically, it was just like mentally the fortitude that someone has to have when they start something, I think is just like the hardest part. Because it doesn't matter how much schooling you have or don't have, if you want to make something happen, if you really want to make it happen, then like that's going to be the kicker, right? So you can have a PhD and everything, but if you don't really want to make anything happen, it's not going to. So definitely. I thought that was the biggest roadblock, and then also just, I mean, nonprofits, it's a tough market. Like it's actually one of the toughest to get into because there's way too many nonprofits. I heard a statistic the other day. It was like for every 260 people, there's one nonprofit.
Wow.
In the U.S.
Wow.
And so
that is a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And just to take it down in scale, like St. Louis, there's a lot of nonprofits in St. Louis. And so how do you capture people's attention, and how do you do good work? All that stuff has to happen sort of like at the same time. And then, we all kind of like hope in nonprofit world that it's going to go from like $0 to $100,000 budget. I'm here to tell you that's not how it works. You grow slowly over time, and you get $5 donations and $10 donations before you get $5,000 and $10,000 donations. So, the magical grant that comes in from wherever, it's not coming. Like, that's not how this stuff works. And so, yeah, it was just like the roadblock. One of the biggest ones was just like, kind of like running a marathon versus running a sprint. I felt like the last 4 years have been about running a marathon. And yes, I felt like giving up. Of course I did sometimes, and you just get back up and you start running again. And if you're running in the same direction with the same mission, then you're running the same marathon. But if you, I think if you're only running a sprint, then it's over really quickly, And so I think most people in their lives feel like they're running a sprint, doing this one thing and this one project, and if they all add up, then it can really create something pretty magical. But figuring out how to get them to all add up is the hard part. Right? You just kind of like grow a seed over time, and I would say plant a lot of seeds because you don't know which ones are going to grow.
Bingo. That's it.
So the best things also happen organically, like the best relationships, the best business practices, the best it's all going to happen organically.
The other thing we were talking about was actually like creating the nonprofit. How would you advise someone else kind of get their feet wet with doing that?
I would say go work for nonprofits first. So I had lots of years of working for a nonprofit, doing programs and understanding how to create a program from beginning to end and learning what is an effective program, right? All happened sitting on a board, working as a volunteer and understanding the board's role, right? I think an effective nonprofit founder and ED understands what a board looks like and how they have done that. And then starting to fundraise for another nonprofit, right? Like that I worked for, right? So I had to learn all these different parts in order to put it together like a puzzle. But yeah, if you're gonna start your own nonprofit, maybe there's one out there that has a slightly similar message or mission that you have in your work, and maybe they need somebody who is a dedicated volunteer to run a program. And so you figure out how to align your mission and their program needs, right? Their self-interest and your self-interest, and learn about that program, right? And so I would just say that a lot of great nonprofits come out of other nonprofits.
Yeah.
So they're programmed, and then they may be fiscally sponsored by or project of, right? And then become a fiscally sponsored organization of the nonprofit. And eventually it just grows over time versus like 0 to 60.
Right.
And so I would recommend that, because then you would also build allies and build connections and network with the nonprofit that you're sort of closely aligned with, right? And so yeah, if you're working inside of a healthy nonprofit, then that would be an excellent way to go about it, right? That's not always the case, but that would be ideal, I'd say.
We talked earlier about one goal would be to have one GSA in every school district in Missouri. What other goals would you say that the Missouri GSA Network is hoping to move towards in the future?
So we definitely want to focus and center our work around trans women of color. We know that they're most impacted by some of the things of some of the violence that happens in our communities, and some of the poverty that is just running rampant within that community is stifling. So right now, I think that the statistic is 47% of trans women of color will become HIV positive within their lifetime.
Wow.
47%. And so one of our goals, it has to be to work with these women, the young women specifically, the under 23, under 18, these girls that are at the intersections of these identities, and work with them to build power. These are often, people who don't feel valued by the communities that they're in, and they're told specifically that we don't value you, right? So how do we work with them to give them power, and then also how do we connect them to each other? Because one of the other things that keeps them powerless is they don't know each other. So I was blown away when we started working with these young women that they didn't know each other at all. And part of it is resources, but also there's a lot of just not understanding about what's going on, and there's not a whole lot of love when you feel like you are being pushed down by every other thing in the world. It's really hard to find a way to love and care for somebody else. So one of our goals is to have a strong center core of trans women of color through a program we call the Sisterhood, and have those young women lifted up and not see the same numbers that we see around HIV, and also I would say that my dreams are in progress too. So when you asked me to do this, I was like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm in the middle of transition all the time. I don't feel like I'm ever finished with oh, my dreams have come true, where I have reached a destination point. I mean, I think I've gotten older and more things have happened, and now I can make more things happen than I used to be able to, right? But I mean, I still hustle.
For sure.
Hustle hard, stay humble, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
You need to find out how you can join in with Missouri GSA Network and help out.
Yeah, so we're online on social media, and we also have our own website. It's just MissouriGSANetwork.org. You can also check out, we're part of a national association at GSANetwork.org.
Oh, great. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again for doing this,
Mhm.
and have a great day.
All right, bye.
Bye.